Jordan Peterson has declared war on Candace Owens, and this is getting wild. So he's gone after Candace, calling her a hypocrite and a Pharisee. And what else did he call her? A scribe? He called her a lot of things. Candace had responded to Andrew Klavan. This, I believe, largely is bubbling up from Candace Owens having left the Daily Wire. There's been some tension and animosity. Candace Owens, of course, has been accused of being anti-Semitic quite a bit, and actually won from some organization. Not that I think these organizations matter, because but she won Anti-Semite of the Year. And I'm like, I could make up an organization, put a website up, and then give anybody an award I want. It's meaningless. But where this goes wild and where it begins all has to do with, you got a post from Andrew Klavan of the Daily Wire talking about the phrase Christ is King. Candace Owens responds. Jordan Peterson responds in a long thread calling Candace choice words. The root of this debate, fiasco, whatever, is the phrase Christ is King. The argument from many people and from this group called this is awful. I'm sorry. The Network Contagion Research Institute. I facepalm when I see this. I'm sorry, guys.
Network Contagion Institute.
Thy name in vain. How online extremists hijacked Christ is King. Okay, so the argument they're making is that they're anti-Semites who don't engage in debate. They simply respond to people saying Christ is King. And then what this document, I guess, I thought, it's right here. Here we go. Yeah, we can look at it. I don't know. I can make it bigger, right? There we go. 21 pages, and it basically goes into how these extremists online are hijacking religious affirmation. The phrase Christ is King has been systematically co-opted by extremist figures, for which they mention a handful of people you know and love. The first thing they mention is the usage of Christ as King as a phrase, and they're claiming that the expanded use of it is meant as, and I'll paraphrase, the criticism of the phrase, of the use of Christ as King, not the phrase itself, is that it's being used by anti-Semites to insult Jews. Basically, whenever someone is, perceived as quote unquote Jew by the Jewanon people or whatever, or someone is in any way defensive of something that people determine to be like Israeli or whatever, you'll get a response from someone saying, Christ is King. To which many people have come on and said, aha, you don't really mean it. You're using that to attack people you perceive as pro-Israel, pro-Jewish, whatever it may be. So then this is the heat of the debate. They mentioned Jack Posobiec in 21 saying Christ is King twice. And they mentioned that it is a what do they say? Where is it? By the context, it shifted. Where is the mention? They say, here we go. Jack Posobiec had one of the most, he authored the phrase, amassing a combined 34,000 likes. Posobiec, while known as sometimes polarizing in American discourse, nevertheless used the phrase in its original apolitical context. His posts, while reflective of his broader conservative views, were semantically neutral and devoid of bigotry. They likely represented a historic, normative use of the Christian phrase. Well, there you go, Jack. They're saying, yeah, I guess. However, they then get very mad at Candace Owens and Jake Shields. And they mention these two posts, which I don't quite get why they're highlighting. Candace Owens tweeted, Bridget Macron was born Jean-Michel Trogneau. He lived as a man for about 30 years before transitioning to Bridget. While he lived as a man, he fathered 3 children. He statutorily raped his young student and the future president of France, Emmanuel Macron, hashtag Christ is King. I don't know what that hashtag has to do with what she posted. But okay. Anyway, I digress. The first thing I want to say before we get into the big drama of this, anytime a consortium or institute puts out a report on wrongthink, you've just lost the argument. And I'm just like, they just crumple it up and throw it in the garbage. I don't understand the point of this. So here's where we're at. Andrew Klavan says, the problem with arguing with anti-Semites is that they are genuinely as stupid as bricks. They say Christ is King and America first, then make excuses for Iran's government of radical Islamists dedicated to U.S. destruction. They think Gentiles have tormented and persecuted Jews in one nation after another, so there must be something wrong with Jews. Really, Sherlock? They're not even smart enough to be feckless clowns. Jews are less than 3% of their population and have made amazing contributions to science, industry, finance, and entertainment. And that's not even mentioning the bagels. Oh, the bagels. And while Jews have their evildoers like everybody else, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Nagasaki and Bolsheviks and Leo Frank are truly the work of semi-literate morons. I know they like to flood social media with ugly garbage. It's all they've got. But paying attention to them lowers your IQ more than fluoride and doesn't even help your teeth. Best to leave them to play with themselves. Candace Owens responded, "Thank you for re-upping the most crucial conversation about Christ is King almost exactly a year later and once again during the season of Lent. After a year of thoughtfulness, I want you to know that I will never stop declaring it." And then Jordan Peterson says, this is where it gets heavy. "Candace Owens is a true Pharisaical pretender. She vociferously proclaims her devotion to Christ for no other reason than to elevate her perceived status. Her outrage is designed not to shout the truth from rooftops, but build bridges or make peace, but to subvert Christianity itself with its new force to her own purpose. She is literally using God's name in vain. There are few more unforgivable sins. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You are like whitewashed tombs, which appear beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of dead men's bones and every kind of filth." Holy crap. "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You shut the door on the of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. All this for the Machiavellians who dare to use what is good for their own vile purposes." And then, finally, he says if she wasn't the worst of hypocrites, she would forswear the Tate brothers. But they draw attention, and for a pretender, all attention is good attention, even at the cost, say, of the pearl of great price. Candace responded saying, "Judging by the comments, this tweet appears to be backfiring. In your highly sought-after psychological assessment, why do you suppose that is, Doc?" I gotta be honest. Candace Owens' response is much better suited for the internet in addressing the perceptions of the individuals. And I think Jordan Peterson and Andrew Klavan are making mistakes. Not to mention, if you really want to address any kind of perceived misuse of Christ as King, drafting a consortium report is the worst way to go about doing it. But more to the point, I wonder if this is just underlying a greater conflict having to do with the Daily Wire and lost talent. I don't know what you guys think.
I think that the beef between Peterson and Candace Owens. I mean, look, Peterson's very fond of religion, but he's not a religious guy himself, so I'm not 100% sure.
Isn't he a Christian?
No.
He's not a Christian.
No.
What? I thought
His
he was.
wife's
He
a
does
Catholic.
not profess to be a Christian and does not profess to believe in the resurrection.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't really understand what convicts him particularly about the use of Christ's name if he doesn't believe in Christ's divinity.
Is Klavan a Christian?
Klavan
Yes,
is.
he
Yeah.
is.
Is he Catholic?
No, he's Protestant.
Really? And Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh tolerate that? I'm kidding.
Yeah.
ChatGPT says Jordan Peterson's a Christian. I thought he was.
No.
Yeah, I don't think he is. His wife, I believe, is Catholic.
Well, I'm curious your thoughts, Mary, as a Christian.
It's just so stupid to me that this debate is resurrected, I guess, by this report, because it's been over a year since she left Daily Wire. So can everyone just associate how they want to associate and move on with their lives? But also, proclamation of Christ's kingship and evangelism for Christ's kingdom is obviously a core tenet, if not the core tenet, of Christianity. So tone policing the way that the phrase Christ is King is used is always going to be kind of pointless, because that means you're trying to read the intentions and the hearts of people using that phrase, which is nearly impossible. So the whole debate just seems really
Are you
stupid
Christian
and
as well?
pointless to me.
Billboard Chris.
I don't really know how to answer that, Tim, but that's a longer conversation for another time. I'm kind of there.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I have a story from today, but we're not going to get into that. But I would say I am, but I've got some issues, as many people do. But I would offer a slightly alternative viewpoint there. I think people are using Christ is King as a means of trolling. They absolutely are. And that is coming from a lot of the anti-Semitic people. This is indisputable.
But is Candace doing that? I don't think Candace is doing that.
I think she is.
You do? Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, when she tweeted Bridget Macron as a man in this very hilarious tweet and then hashtagged Christ is King, it seems kind of like a non sequitur. But I understand what you're saying, because I've seen people respond to posts by saying Christ is King that seem out of context and may be antagonistic.
I mean, the entire Nick Fuentes crowd, all the Groypers, all the frogmen on Twitter, they all say that constantly. And they're just
Yeah, but is that
trolls
Candace?
and they're jerks and they're liars. No, that's not Candace. I'm just talking about the bigger picture.
No, I know. I mean, they highlight Candace and Jake Shields as like the principal, like doers of using it as a troll to antagonize. I don't think Candace is
I
doing
think
that.
maybe with her addition of the hashtag Christ is King at the end of that tweet about Brigitte Macron, I like started off watching her series about it. I honestly don't. I've been listening to it, but I haven't understood a single thing. But she's talking about a lot of the shady associations that the Macrons have, and also their endorsement and creation of the Olympics show that mocked the Last Supper. I think maybe it seems out of context to people who haven't looked at her series, but to her, because she's deeply investigated all of that, it seems to contextually make sense to add that in the tweet, because she's talking about this anti-Christian
I see.
Olympics show that they put on last year.
So would it be fair then to say this report is misattributing the intention of her tweet and its relation to her larger body of work?
That's why the debate seems stupid to me, because you're just going to assert that you know what someone is thinking and feeling in the moment, and you can't.
And you're mad they said it to you.
Basically.
I do think people troll with it. I think they are Christian, they're doing it. But I think the perception is exaggerated among those who are offended by it. Like the people who are, maybe the right word isn't trolling. They're basically shutting down the conversation with it, is maybe another way to say it.
I don't know if I get a disproportionate amount of these people in my replies, but I get thousands of them all the time, particularly because of the issue I talk about. All the Nick Fuentes crowd, all these groypers, all these anti-Semites, they all want to blame the Jews for transgenderism. Because
everything
they blame
bad
the- they
comes
blame
from
the
they blame the Jews for everything, but because of this doctor in the pre-Nazi era who ran the sexual clinic there, Magnus Hirschfeld, he was a Jewish man. And Candace had a podcast one day where she said, you know, we learned that the Nazis burned all these books and burning these books was bad. And she says, but you know what? They never told us what books they were burning. And then she goes on to mention these books from Magnus Hirschfeld's clinic. She doesn't mention any of the other books, just those ones. As a justification, really, is what she was doing for why they were burning the books. And what all these anti-Semites will say is that, Chris, it's the Jews, it's the Jews, it's the Jews behind everything. Magnus Hirschfeld, why don't you know this? Well, I talk about it all the time. And you know what? The Jewish people are not a monolith. There are going to be bad Jews in the world, just as there are bad people from any identity group or culture or whatever. What they never mention is that the first actual vaginoplasty surgery that was done and the attempt to put a uterus into a man, a surgeon doing that was the surgeon for the Luftwaffe who worked at the Dachau concentration camp who conducted freezing
The
experiments.
Nazis started it.
Well, there was a Nazi working with a Jew on the very first surgery. Erwin Gorbrandt.
Together.
Erwin Gorbrandt was his name, but they never mentioned that. But they just want to blame it all on Jews, and it's not that simple. A lot of the people I know
You say checkmate.
who are most supportive in this fight against transgenderism are Jewish, but they just want to blame Jews for everything, and I think she's feeding into that.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.